regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Texas Southmost College District. Trustees present, Ms. Alejandra Aldrete, Ms. Delia Sáenz, Dr. Tony Zabaleta,
Present.
Ms. Adela Garza, and Mr. J.J. De Leon. Absent is Ms. Eva Alejandro. Item number 2, Dr. Zabaleta, will you lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Very good.
Next item is consideration of a level 3 grievance hearing of Kim Sanchez at the request of the grievant. This will be an open meeting session pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.074. Will everyone please take their places? It is approximately 4:31, and today's date is March 24th, 2022. We are present at the Gorgas Boardroom at Texas Southmost College, located at 84 Brown, Brownsville, Texas. This is a level 3 grievance brought by Ms. Kim Sanchez, a former employee of Texas Southmost College. Ms. Sanchez is represented by Attorney John Shergold. The administration is represented by Mr. Rubén Peña and Elizabeth Valderrama. Prior to getting started, we would like for everyone who will participate in this proceeding to verbally identify themselves for the record.
Yes, Mr. John Shergold. I'm here on behalf of my client, Ms. Sanchez. Thank you.
And Rubén Peña for the administration, along with Ms. Valderrama.
Perfect. Thank you. This hearing is being conducted today pursuant to policy DGBA local. I have allowed for 1 hour for this hearing. I will preliminarily decide that Ms. Sanchez will be given 20 minutes to present her concerns. Administration will be allowed 20 minutes to present their position. The last 20 minutes will be set aside to allow each side 10 minutes for rebuttal to wrap things up. And at my discretion, individual board members will then be allowed to ask questions in accordance to TSC policy DGBA local. I also remind the parties that at all time, limits set aside for presentations are at my discretion, and I reserve the right to expand or reduce these limits to ensure the efficient presentation. Examination or cross-examination of witnesses will not be allowed. I respectfully request that both parties address their presentation and comments to me, the TSC board chair, and trustees, and not directly address the other party or attempt to confront or question each other. Each board member has been given all documentation of the previous grievance levels, hearings, and with that in mind, I request of Ms. Sanchez and her representative that the presentation be limited to the issues as allowed by and pursuant to TSC policy DGBA local. Likewise, I request that administration limit its presentation to the relevant issues raised in the grievance. Finally, the TSC board will not respond to any questions by either party regarding the issues in this matter. I respectfully request that you limit any questions to issues regarding the procedures to be utilized here today. With these matters in mind, it is approximately 4:34. Ms. Sanchez, you may proceed.
Thank you. Before I do, I just to make sure I understand the rules. 20 minutes each side, and then we get 10 minutes to rebut.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here. I've had a lot of years in this community, and I've had a lot of good experiences with this college, and I appreciate everyone here that's sitting on this board. I know you're doing it as a volunteer, and you're doing it without getting paid, and you're doing it because you believe it's the right thing to do. We have an exceptional individual that I'm representing today, Ms. Kimberly Sanchez. Ms. Sanchez was an employee here for almost 17, 18 years. She, during that time period, not one write-up, not one reprimand, not one concern. A model employee, was heavily utilized in the transition between the UT days and when the college had its differentiation with the UT system, and actually was very, very instrumental in making a smooth transition between the independent nature that this college has today. With this in mind, my client, and I'm going to go through the exhibits that we can go ahead, and then that way I think it'll be more logical and maybe easier to follow. If you look at exhibit number 1, how do we get to this point today? My client, when she was terminated, believed that the termination was motivated based upon age discrimination. Now, in your policy, you have what's called DIAB. That would be under exhibit number 3. Exhibit 1 and 2 are the complaints that were filed, and you may look at the top, it's called a charge of discrimination. This was what was filed to the Texas Workforce Commission, Division of Civil Rights, who's still currently conducting an investigation of this matter. But for the purposes of today's hearing, this was submitted as the discrimination charge under the policy of the college under DIAB. So that way you can understand how that one fits with the other. So this document that was filed was then taken under the auspice. At the time, I believe Felix Horatio was the individual that was designated under policy to handle these types of complaints. Somehow, for some reason, he did not investigate the matter. It became the appointment came to another individual, and I'll get into that individual's report in just a few moments. Now, if you look at the charge complaint, you'll notice under it, it talks about that my client was accused of violating policy. Specifically, the policy that she was accused of violating that she denies and has denied from the very beginning is that one of her colleagues, and I'm not going to mention the gentleman's name for respect to the privacy, but one of the individuals that she worked with passed away because of medical conditions due to COVID. And my client, being the type of person that she is, was asked by several other employees of the college if she could take a collection for the funeral of that individual. And so, this is quite typical in American employment. Employers understand that employees that die, their colleagues are going to be bereaved and upset, and they try to help out the family. This is exactly what my client did, and this is what she was fired for. I'm not kidding you. This is what she was terminated for. The college, if you look on the second page of the charge complaint, you'll see that I've annotated, and this also is part of the exhibits today, that it talks about that my client had violated, I believe it's section on page 4 of DGC local policy. It reads, employee solicitation shall mean the sale or offer for sale of any property or service, whether for immediate or future delivery. Now, let's just think about that. When Kim was collecting some money, which wasn't a very lot, maybe $200-300, maybe at the most. And by the way, some of the money that was provided to her was on Mr. Horatio, Judge Horatio, excuse me. He was at the time, the compliance officer for the discrimination complaints. Yeah, and he was one of the individuals that donated money to my client. And therefore, later, she's basically told that she violated the policy, the same policy that he's there to enforce. Again, this policy, if you read what the statement says, solicitation shall mean sell or offer for sale of any property or service, whether for immediate or future delivery. It's collecting money from people like Judge Horatio and some other employees. Is that for is that for a property or service for immediate or future delivery? Absolutely not. This is the policy that my client was terminated under. And it says, and the receipt of any gift or contribution by an employee or employee organization might have some connotation in that statement, but it's the word and, not or. And I'm not trying to be a lawyer here, but I've been one for a few years. That's why my mom doesn't understand me too much anymore, and she's 87 years old. But when it says and, it means that both conditions have to apply. The first condition does not apply. She was not in the action of doing what it says there, which is for solicitation shall mean sell or offer for sale of any property or service, collecting money for a dead friend who she worked with to alleviate the funeral expenses. There's no question that's not what the money was for. If you go ahead then and go to exhibit number 4, you'll get to the investigation report. This was actually conducted by Mr., I believe it was, if you look at the investigation on the second page, Oscar D. Hernandez. Now, Mr. Hernandez is the one who conducted the investigation, not Judge Horatio. And I don't know why that was, but I would assume probably because Judge Horatio was a witness, because he was the one who basically reached out to my client and wanted to convey some money in order to defray the funeral expense of the person who died that she worked with. Now, the report that's written on, let's talk about it for a second. What is it that my client is talking about? Age discrimination. Now, look at his report. Now, if you look at the report, you'll indicate that my client was interviewed, and it says right here on December the 6th. Now, when is the date of this report? 7 December, Pearl Harbor Day, right? December the 7th. So actually, after Mr. Hernandez, our investigator, was assigned by, I suppose, the board, I don't know who's assigned by, I'm assuming it was the president of the college, but I don't know. But whoever assigned this individual supposedly conducted witness investigation. Look at the people that he supposedly interviewed, and my client. And then within 24 hours, he renders a report. That's the record I've ever seen of an investigation being conducted. Now, if you're wondering, well, what's the policy say about the investigation? Well, the policy that my client filed under states that he had 10 business days to conduct the investigation. He did this investigation in less than 24 hours. Now, let's look at the findings in the investigation. In this investigation, remember, age discrimination, really easy. 1, you have to be over 40 years old. My client is. 2, you have to be qualified for the job. Kim's worked here for 18 years, worked in HR, journalist. She's done it all, seen it all, has had no performance issues, no evaluation problems, excellent. The person who moved in to take over her department, Ms. Balderrama, she only supervised her for less than 90 days from the time she terminated her. After 18 years on the job and no problems, okay? So she's qualified, so that's the second element. Third element, adverse employment action. She was fired. Fourth element, she was replaced by someone younger, or she was treated differently than someone that was younger. Now, this is where Mr. Hernandez is incorrect. Mr. Hernandez, in his analysis, and I don't know what his background is, I know that Mr. Pena has a lot of history. Me and him have had a lot of history in age discrimination law, but I don't know what his background is, and I'm sure that can come up at some later time. But the investigator claims that she was not replaced by someone younger, that the person that my client claimed that replaced her, he even puts down there the date of birth at the bottom paragraph, March 24th, 1978. If you basically take that date and you do the calculations, that means that my client she's 8 years younger than my client. Now, did the investigator put anything in there about the significance of that? No, he did not. I gave your attorney, is now representing the administration in this case. This is the Douglas v. Anderson case. This is the Fifth Circuit, 1991, still good law followed. The law is that you have to be 5 years younger in order to make a prima facie case of age discrimination. This lady that we claim replaced my client is 8 years younger than my client, but this investigator did not even put in there what the correct federal law is. So you can make a prima facie case of age discrimination. The only thing is, they just have to be 5 years or younger. We've got that in this case. So your investigator either is incorrect because he doesn't know what the law was, or he did it deliberately, one of the two. I'm sorry to say that. It has to be one or the other. Either he's incompetent and he didn't know that, or 2, he did it deliberately. It's got to be one of the two. So my client did make a prima facie case of age discrimination, although the report says she did not. And remember, he only took 1 day to do the investigation when he had 10 business days to do it. Sound like a fair process for someone who's worked there for 18 years? Sounds like a railroad job to me. But that's just my opinion because I'm her client, I'm her lawyer, and I'm kind of like pro-employee. Okay, so let's look at the other issues. What was the reason for the termination? That's what you got to show. The employer has to show that there was an unbiased, reasonable, non-discriminatory reason why she was terminated. Do you think there is a unbiased, reasonable interpretation of her being fired? That I just read you the policy they claim she was fired under, and it doesn't apply. And she can rebut that. I just did. So there you go. We've got a prima facie case of age discrimination that can get to a trier fact. And the investigator didn't tell you that. That's why we appealed it under the DG, or under the appeal process that we have, and we've asked for this hearing out in the open. Now, let's talk about some more issues. Ms. Sanchez has been in one of the exhibits that you'll see. I think it's interesting. In one of the college's exhibits, you'll see it. I think it's exhibit number 9. They're going to try to claim that my client was aware of another policy, 3.3. Now let's remember, Mr. Pena and Ms. Valderrama went into a room with my client and gave her a paper and said, either sign this and resign, or we're going to fire you. That's what, and then Mr. Pena is here today, and I respect him immensely. He's one of the finest men that God ever made. But I just disagree with the fact that he went into a room and gave a paper to someone that is an employee of the district and says, either sign the paper or we're going to fire you. Okay? And he's here to represent the college today. Now, when that happened, my client says, wait a second, what policy did I violate? Well, I just told you the policy they said she tried to violate, and there's no way she violated. Then afterwards, you'll see in the documentation here that they try to switch over to another policy, which is called 3.3 policy. And in this email, they're going to try to claim that my client knew about 3.3 policy, but at the time she was told she needed to be fired or she needed to resign, that issue was never brought up to her at that meeting. That was something that was brought up after she hired me, and I'm half smart, and I was able to show that under the policy they claim she was fired under, it's impossible to do that. So then they changed the rule to 3.3. Now, how is it that they're going to say to you, oh, she knew about it, Mr. Shergold. She knew that she couldn't take that money for that person, that family, and for their funeral, because there was another incident that happened sometime in the past with another employee. So what? My answer to that is, I'm sorry that that employee didn't hire me. He should have hired me, because I would have came in there and I would have said the same thing to you guys and ladies. Now, 3.3 says that you're not supposed to solicit, but it's supposed to be toward political and partisan reasons. Now, I want to thank you, Kim, for Mr. Pena asked you to look up that policy several years ago, and he wanted you to send it to him, which is section 3.1. And guess what, Kim? I'm glad you handed it to him, because you became an expert in it, because you read it, and you knew that when you were taking money for a funeral for a friend that died because of COVID, you knew that that did not violate the policy, because you weren't doing it for politics and you weren't doing it for partisanship. You're doing it, and just like the Bible says, there's no greater love than giving your life for a friend. Now here, she didn't give her life, but she gave her career and her job for a friend. How much time left do I have, Frank, please?
You have a little over 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Now, the policy, let's talk about let's look at that, and let's look at that just in a little more detail. I think that you'll see that the policy is under, I think it's in Exhibit 10, I believe it is. Yes, just 1 second, please. Yes, it's in Exhibit 7, excuse me. If you see Exhibit number 7, I'm going to read 3.3. Employees are prohibited from soliciting personally or via electronic mail for membership, pledges, subscriptions, collection of money, or for any other unauthorized purpose anywhere on TSC property during work time, especially those of a partisan or political nature. Now, let's assume that you try to wiggle this policy into why you have a justification to terminate my client, and tell me is, why was this not issued or brought up at the time of her termination? It was brought up after she was terminated. As a matter of fact, it was brought up afterwards because the policy that they brought up before that already doesn't apply. And this policy was brought up ex post facto, means Latin, after the fact. If you're going to terminate someone, then I want to hear from the representative of the administration today, why was this policy not brought up to my client on the date of her termination? I'm going to be interested in hearing a response to that. Now, if you hear the level 2 grievance or level 1 hearing that we had before this, I want you to listen to the audio version, the audio tape. And I have tremendous respect for Mr. Pena. I'll go hunting with them, I'll go fishing with them, I'll go try a case with them, and whatever it is, even work against them like we are today, but we'll still be friends afterwards. But he's just wrong about this. Because even if in his presentation at level 2, under the this policy I'm talking about, 3.3 solicitation, when they tried to bring it up after the fact, he even says to the hearing officer, he read the policy, and this is how he read it. And I ask you to go back and listen to the audio tape. He read it, in order to violate the policy, it says, solicitation shall mean to sell or offer of any property or service, whether the immediate or the future delivery and the receipt. Then he changes it to word or. Now I suggest in the future, if the college here wants to go ahead and change the policy to the word or, as I suggested, then please do so. But this is what the policy is today. That's why my client did not operate under any violation of any policy, whether this one that I just read, which is under DGC, or under the other policy under 3.3, because she knew that what she was doing did not violate these policies until after she was terminated, and then it was attempted to be changed after the fact. You lost a good employee, not based on performance, not based on anything else, but based on our belief that it was motivated by a new director that came into her department that wanted to clean house and wanted to remove as many of the older individuals. Thank you very much, Frank. She wanted to remove as many of the older individuals as she could to clear the deck. Problem is, I caught them. That's what I do for a living. I'm good at it. Maybe I'm not good at anything else, but I'm good at this. And I'm making the evidence and the facts for you right now. Because the thing is, this board, if you want to change the policy, has the right to do so, but you need to do it before you fire someone and utilize the policy. Again, we're not here to bury Caesar, we're here to praise Caesar. I am not here to embarrass or make this college, or Kim, make this college district, this college embarrass it. We're here to improve it. The best way to do it is through public discourse. That's why we've got a world right now with Putin over there trying to shut down the world. The bottom line is that's not our country. That's not what we believe in. That's not what we are about. And Kim, she did not deserve this. Now, whether you believe it's age discrimination or not, that's something that a trier of fact can come up with later. The fact is that she can make a prima facie case, and the reasons that were provided for her termination are false. It'll be up to a jury to decide it. Today, you're the jury. You're the jurors. You get to decide. Because Kim did not, in my closing, Kim did not have to exhaust remedies through his college. She could have just filed the charge that you've got in front of you and gone over there to the courthouse. And she said, and she's given me permission to tell you what she told me, right, Kim? She said, John, she said, I don't want you to go file a lawsuit before we have a chance for the board to take a look at this and see if they can get it right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Peña.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Rodriguez. Let me begin by clarifying the sole issue you have before you. The sole issue is whether or not Kim Sanchez was terminated based on her age. That's the only issue. No matter how noble the cause that she may have been propounding, no matter how heart-rending it may have been, the only issue that you have tonight, or when you make a decision, is whether the college terminated her employment based on her age. Mr. Shergill has argued that Ms. Sanchez was terminated on her age, and the reason that the college has provided for her termination, that is violation of board policy and the employee handbook, prohibition on solicitation, are pretext. That's his argument. In order to establish the college's reason for her termination are false, she must show that she was replaced by individuals who are not in the protected category. That is, individuals under the age of 40. All the individuals that were hired that did not, well, first of all, let me retract that. First of all, Ms. Sanchez was never replaced as the Director of Employee Benefits and Compensation. She was never replaced in that position. 2 other employees were hired during her tenure at Human Resources. Both of those individuals are in the protected category. In other words, they were both over the age of 40. If Ms. Valderrama, as Mr. Shergill has claimed, she was trying to get rid of all the old people, she would never have hired people who were already in that protected category. So first of all, no individual was employed to replace Ms. Sanchez. Her position of Director of Employee Benefits and Compensation has not been filled. That is an important issue because that's part of their claim that she has to make, that she was replaced, that her position was replaced by someone not in the protected. And so we are here to tell you, we have no Director of Employee Benefits and Compensation. So that claim false. Her claim that the 2 individuals who replaced her are significantly younger is incorrect. As I mentioned, they're both in the protected category. One is actually 50 years old. In fact, the positions were already in the pipeline for employment, and Ms. Sanchez was actually on the committee that recommended and interviewed them for employment. So it makes no sense that she's claiming that these people replaced her when in fact they were already going to be hired, and because those positions were available. And they were hired as HR generalists, not as a director of anything. So the allegation that she was replaced by individuals who are not in the protected category is incorrect. Likewise, the allegations that they replaced her is incorrect. The 2 individuals were in fact hired, as I mentioned, before she was terminated. They did not assume her duties. Those duties, in fact, were spread out amongst all the individuals in the Human Resources Department, including some that were assumed by the Director of Human Resources, Ms. Valderrama. Let me address the basis of her termination. And I think this is the crux of Mr. Shergill's argument. Our board policy, DGC, which is Exhibit 8, it prohibits solicitation and specifically during working hours. We'll go through that in just a moment. The employee handbook, which Mr. Shergill has railed about, Section 3.3, which again is Exhibit 7, likewise prohibits solicitation, specifically the collection of money during working hours. Now, this is significant, again, because in September of 2020, I specifically requested from Ms. Sanchez if she could provide me with a provision in the employee handbook related to solicitation. She provided me with Section 3.3, and we have an exhibit that shows that. The reason for the request that I made to her was another employee was soliciting funds from employees. When we made that determination, did our investigation, that employee was terminated. Ms. Sanchez was fully aware of the prohibition of solicitation of money without proper authorization. Well, what does proper authorization mean? That means that you request from the Vice President of Administration of Finance and Administration permission to do a fundraising or collection. And there are a number of ways that that could be done. But she didn't do that. Additionally, and this is really significant, when her direct supervisor became aware of the solicitation, she advised Ms. Sanchez not to solicit funds. Ms. Valderrama had a meeting with all of her staff because she became concerned when she saw cash on Ms. Sanchez's desk and was advised that employees were coming to the office with cash to contribute. In spite of this directive, Ms. Sanchez continued to do so in direct violation of her supervisor's directive. That is an act of insubordination. Cristina Garcia's statement, which is an exhibit, illustrates Ms. Sanchez violating her supervisor's directive. Refusal to carry out directives of an employee's supervisor is an offense that may warrant immediate termination. And that's DH local, which is also an exhibit. Note, it's important also to understand that she, on the one hand, denies that she violated the policy, and on the other hand, admits that she collected the funds in her own documents. And we'll go through that in just a second. Now, why is this policy important? You can imagine the kind of effect that this would have on the college with people who are collecting funds without anyone having oversight. How much money was being collected, who was being solicited, where the monies were going to be paid to. That puts the college in a position of liability to answer for those funds. And that's why this policy is so important. They're to prevent the unauthorized solicitation, which places the college in liability. We cannot account for those funds, how they were distributed, who was to account for them, and returning the funds compounds the issue. Ms. Sanchez was an at-will employee. She had no property interest in her position. As such, she can be terminated for any reason, so long as it was not an unlawful reason. And the claim here is that the reason she was fired was based on age. We have shown to you so far some of the reasons that we believe that she violated different policies. Now, on November 15, 2021, Mr. Shergill has brought this up, Judge Recio received a letter from Mr. Shergill referencing Ms. Sanchez's claim of age discrimination. He mistakenly referenced DIAA local. That's our policy on anti-sexual harassment. At the same time, on the same day, Mr. Shergill filed Ms. Sanchez's discrimination complaint with the Texas Workforce Commission. That is the Exhibit 1 and 2. Filing with the Texas Commission on Human Resources initiates the process for filing a lawsuit. You have, under law, 180 days to file your claim with the TWC. And Mr. Shergill didn't wait 120, he didn't wait at all. He went ahead and filed Ms. Sanchez's claims almost immediately on November 15, 2021. And you can see on Exhibit 1, on the first letter, where Mr. Shergill addresses Mr. Judge Recio under DIA local, alleging age discrimination. We took that anyway. We believe that, and Exhibit 2 has the same complaint with the Texas Workforce Commission. I would like to go ahead and on that Exhibit number 1, where the complaint is, I, like Mr. Shergill, want to point out that issue that is highlighted on the second page. Employee, and that's DGC local. Employee solicitation shall mean the sale or offer for sale of any property or services, whether for immediate or future delivery, and then he capitalizes, it's not capitalized in our policy, and the receipt of or request for any gift or contribution by an employee or employee organization. The term does not include activities engaged in conducting college business. That portion clearly indicates that individuals should not be soliciting funds. Exhibit 2 is a copy of the same TWC complaint. So let me go briefly through the exhibits in your notebook. Exhibit 3, if you will turn to Exhibit 3, that is DIAB local. That is the proper policy wherein an employee makes an allegation of discrimination based on age, amongst other things, race, color, national origin, et cetera, or age. And so that, and we say that conduct, discrimination based on age, is prohibited. If you will go to the 3rd page on DIAB local, where it says investigation of the report. Upon receipt of notice of the report, the college district shall determine whether the allegations, if proven, could constitute prohibited conduct as defined by this policy. If so, the college district official shall immediately authorize or undertake an investigation regardless of whether a criminal or regulatory investigation regarding the same or similar allegations is pending. So this policy tells us we have to undertake an investigation. And while Mr. Shergill may be concerned that it wasn't given to Judge Recio, the college can designate anyone that it determines who should in fact do the investigation. And in fact, it says the investigation may be conducted by the college district official or a designee or by a third party designated by the college, such as an attorney. On the next page, the investigator shall prepare a written report of the investigation. And then lastly, an appeal is obviously available through DGBA, and that's what happened. So the next exhibit, which is Exhibit 4, and again, Mr. Shergill questions why this would only take a day. These are not things that need a whole lot of investigating. He actually interviewed 4 people. Ms. Valderrama interviewed Ms. Sanchez, Claudia Cortina, and Samantha Duque. And his findings are clear that he established that one of the individuals, who we will not name, but they're in that Exhibit 4, was in her mid-40s. On the second page, Mr. Hernandez provided content about what was going on. Ms. Cortina provided screenshots of Teams conversations as evidence. Attachment 1 is the email that I previously mentioned to you before, and I'll skip that for now because we'll get to it in just a moment. But the attachment 2 is the relevant one. Attachment 2 on the third screenshot, or the third one, where Ms. Sanchez, Kim Sanchez, is communicating with Ms. Cortina, states, yes, he passed away last Wednesday. We are taking up a collection for his family to help pay for funeral expenses. If anyone would like to donate something, please drop it off here with either myself or Sandra. This clearly indicates that Ms. Sanchez was in violation of our policies. Exhibit 5 is her primary level complaint. I won't go through it too much other than to state that it basically regurgitates the TWC complaint that she said. However, on the first page, she does admit, I collected funds from other employees of TSC who either I approached or approached me to do so. In fact, I've been doing practice since my time first employment with the college over 17 years ago, who had passed away. That was a custom and practice that college employees would come to help those employees and their families to help with their funeral expenses. Very noble. Not a question that that was noble, but it's still in violation of our policy. And that is when she, again, references GGC local and highlights the "and" word and not the rest of the policy. Exhibit number 6, she appealed Mr. Oscar Hernandez's decision. And that went to Mr. Villarreal, Vice President, Mr. Villarreal. In that decision, Mr. Villarreal sets out the evidence that was set forth in the hearing, the Zoom hearing. And he concludes that that Ms. Sanchez, again, this is the second level, that Ms. Sanchez did not substantiate her claim of age discrimination. And the reason he felt that way was because the fact revealed that, in fact, she violated our policy. That was the only reason that we terminated her, not because she was over the age of 40. Exhibit number 7 is that Section 3 policy that Mr. Shergill mentioned earlier. The solicitation, employees are prohibited from soliciting personally or via electronic mail for membership, pledges, subscription, the collection of money, or any other unauthorized purpose, anywhere on TCS property during work time, especially those of partisan or political nature. So that means that we put an emphasis on partisan or political, but we also say for any unauthorized purpose. And this was an unauthorized purpose. This was the reason that Ms. Sanchez was terminated. Exhibit number 8 is DGC local, which is the policy that we've been mentioning. Again, in this particular, on page 4 of 5 is the relevant provision. Employee solicitation shall mean the sale or offer for sale of any property or service. Well, we know she wasn't doing that, whether for immediate or future delivery. And the receipt of or request for any gift or contribution by an employee or employee organization. We knew that she was doing that. Then at the bottom it says, no solicitation shall be conducted on the grounds, sidewalks, or streets of any property either owned or controlled by the college district, except as approved by the Vice President of Finance Administration. Had she done that, we might have been able to figure a way that this could be done so that we could have accountability. That's what this is all about, accountability. Employees may not engage in solicitation during working hours, which clearly she was.
2 minutes, Mr. Peña.
Thank you. On exhibit number 9, let me move quickly, is again that section 3.3. And the reason that this is here is because we had a similar incident with another employee back in 2020, and I was doing the investigation, and I asked Ms. Sanchez's assistance. She now knew in September 2021 that another employee who solicited without getting authorization from the Vice President of Finance Administration was subject to termination. And that's what we did with that employee as well. Exhibit 10 is the interoffice memo from Cristina Garcia. The portion there on the last page, on the second page, she states that Ms. Sanchez came to her after the meeting with Ms. Valderrama, where she was asked not to solicit, that she was doing so on the hush-hush. Exhibit 11 is DH local, which I won't go into. Let me conclude just by saying that the college takes no pleasure in terminating people. I have a great dislike. But when you have this kind of unfettered solicitation without any kind of accountability, we've done this in the past and we've terminated individuals. And we are going to, because there is no accountability, that puts the college at risk. So the reason she was terminated was for violation of our policies, not due to her age. Thank you.
Is there any rebuttal from Ms. Sanchez or her representative?
Yes, there is, Mr.
10 minutes.
Yes, Mr. President, if I could have a 2-minute warning, Frank?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Again, if everything that Mr. Pena, and I appreciate he has a job to do, but if you, after hearing everything he said, if you think that's justification for terminating an employee for 18 years, well, I just don't believe that this board's going to think that. Let's talk about age discrimination for a second. Mr. Pena made a mistake. I make them. That's why he put erasers on pencils. He said that you have to be under age of 40 to be replaced by someone under the age of 40 in order to be an age discrimination claim to be made. That's incorrect. Consolidated Coin U.S. Supreme Court case, and I'll be happy to supply that case to Mr. Herrera or anyone who wants it, says that it's not the fact of the person who's replaced is under 40. It's whether or not the person is 5 years or is substantially younger than the person. So Mr. Pena, I'm sure, will correct himself in front of the board and let you know that the test is not whether a person's under 40 that replaces you. It's whether the person's substantially younger. And I would ask Mr. Pena to correct the record before in his rebuttal. Now, that being said, let's look at the pattern and practice of this department that Ms. Balderrama has brought in. There was, in the complaint, you'll see Ms. Sandra Garza, I believe, was a colleague of my client, and she was even older than my client. She was also terminated for the same alleged reason of having solicited funds for a funeral expenses. Also, your former director or interim director, Dr. Eugene Connors, he was in his early 70s, and he was not provided the position or was looked over, I guess, for the director's position that Ms. Balderrama. And he is substantially, or she's substantially younger than he is. There is definitely a youth movement in this department, and whether or not Mr. Pena wants to recognize it, it's a fact. And the fact of the matter is, the affidavit, or not the affidavit, but the document that was used, exhibit number 11 from Christina Garcia. Christina Garcia is an assistant in the department who's in her early to mid 30s. And this document was used and dated on November the 18th, 2021 as some sort of evidence against my client. Now, I want to ask everyone on this board here, look at the investigator's dated report, 7 December 2021. What was the date of this report that was given as evidence today, November the 18th, 2021? I defy anyone to look at this investigation report that's signed off by Oscar Hernandez and tell me where it is that he mentions this document anywhere in this. It's not in there. So if it wasn't in there, then why wasn't it in there? So my client would have been able to review that, because this was a document that was added to the evidence after the fact. Now, with the information that we have in the evidence, is there a document in your records for this hearing that shows officially why my client was terminated? There's nothing at all that the college has in her personnel file that shows that she was terminated under the policy violation that they claimed that she violated. Now they claim that she was insubordinate. I just heard that for the first time. I would ask the honorable board to go through any level, the investigator, or look at the hearing, or listen to the grievance hearing, and listen for the word insubordination. That has never been used, never been argued until today. I object to that being made part of the record, and the fact of it is, that is what was said. The other issue is that she violated, it was insubordination, and also she was terminated because at the time she violated 3.3 of the policy. Now, again, that was never a part of the record. That was never told to her as to why she was terminated. This has all been done. If she hadn't filed the complaint and hadn't filed the appeal to the grievance through this process, the college never would have told her that she was fired for insubordination or for violating 3.3. As a matter of fact, the college sent out, in your records here, the college sent out an email or a document out to the entire college stating you need to know what 3.3 is. Now, that was after my client was fired. The other thing is that look at the policy 3.3. It says that you have to be soliciting for partisanship or for political purposes. Now, I'm not that smart, I'm half smart, but let me think about this. If the attorney asks me where that policy is and I read it and I send it to the attorney and it says it needs to be for partisan or political purposes, is that what collecting a couple $100 for a dead person's family so they can bury him decently Yeah, it is noble, and it's not violating any policy at all, because the policy that you have in front of you was not the reason my client was given at the time she was terminated. It was invented after she was terminated. So even if you don't want to follow the argument that I'm making to you, that it's only in cases of partisan or political purposes, then ask yourself why the college and the HR department and Ms. Valderrama or Mr. Pena or anyone, or Dr. Rodriguez or Mr. Rodriguez, why did they ever mention that she had violated policy 3.3 at the time she was terminated? Why did he just come up with that at this point? You can't uphold a termination based on something that happened or you can make up after the fact. There was no rational explanation given to her at the time she was terminated other than, you should have known better, Kim. Either resign or be terminated. That's what was given to her at the time. You have to put yourself at the time of the termination or the time that she was told to be forced to resign. All these sophisticated reasons that you come up with now that have been heard by the administration to you is all after the fact. Insubordination, violated 3.3. If that's the case, then why didn't they put that in a document in front of you today that says that's why she was fired for? Because it doesn't exist. And you got to ask Mr. Pena in your questions, where's the document that she was fired for insubordination? Where's the document that shows that she was fired for violating policy 3.3? For that matter, where's the policy that says that she was violated policy DGC, which I have shown you mathematically. I was a math major. I don't know how I got to law school, but anyway, I was a math major. And, you know, when I was at TCU, my math professor used to say, I like math because if you prove something, you can't disprove it. Look at this as a mathematical equation. 2 parts with the word and, which is plus. There's no or in between it. And yet they're still trying to tell you that she was terminated based on this policy violation, which doesn't even have any record in the file, her employment file. All they say is it's at will. She can be fired. Now, one last thing I'd like to mention is, and this is kind of a thing that kind of never has been, I think, thought about, is why not progressive discipline? You know, I used to work for a lot of county. I work for the county. I work for
2 minutes, Mr. Shergill.
2 minutes. I work for the district attorney's office. I work for the city. I work for the city of Brownsville. I work for the state government up in the state legislature. I've worked for a lot of different employers in my day. And one of the things that I've always learned and always appreciated was something called progressive discipline. I mean, really? We got to fire someone based on collecting $200 based on a colleague who died? And also, what about the people that my client gave the names to, the investigator, who had also been soliciting, allegedly, according to their own policy, for funerals in the past? Why weren't they fired? And the investigator knows their names, but he didn't put that in his report. He left that out conveniently. And we don't have the notes and we don't have the documents that he had, but he did his investigation in less than 24 hours. Hey, that's faster than, I used to throw ice when I grew up in Fort Worth when I was a kid. I used to throw it out in the yard when it was 102 degrees outside. It'd melt in about 30 seconds or a minute. He did his investigation faster than that ice would melt when I grew up back there. And you ask yourself, why wasn't that information? Why did that not find itself into the investigation report? That there were individuals that had also done the same alleged violation and they're still working here today. And a lot of you work in different jobs. Some of you work at the BISD, some of you work for your own firm, some of you work or have worked successfully and owned your own businesses. Ask yourself, if this is an age discrimination because you have all these individuals that have now been replaced with younger people, and the reasons that you were given today for terminating my client, if you don't think that's true, if you don't think that that makes any sense to you, how many times have you ever heard of a person being fired in the workplace for simply collecting some money for a dead person you worked with? It happens all over the United States. These policies do not apply to that situation.
Your 10 minutes is up, Mr. Shergill.
Thank you. And our remedies are written in there. Thank you so much.
Mr. Pena?
Yes, sir. The issue, regardless of smoke that Mr. Shergold likes to throw up here is whether or not we terminated Ms. Sanchez due to her age. That's the only real issue here. The other issues are actually nothing more than smokescreens for an attempt to try to obfuscate the real reason that Ms. Sanchez was terminated. In fact, Mr. Shergold has admitted now on the record that she violated our policies. Did we give her a copy of the policy when we met with her? No, we did not. We sat down with her and told her, Ms. Sanchez, you're being terminated for violating the policy of the college and violating it by soliciting funds from other employees when you were told not to do so. That was the reason that will you find the word insubordination in Oscar Hernandez's report or Luis Villarreal's report? No, you will not find it because the lawyer was not writing it. If the lawyer were writing it, he would have made sure that that was included in there. But when you read the report, when you read Mr. Hernandez's report, and when you read Mr. Villarreal's report, you will see the instances there where he refers to Ms. Sanchez not following the directive of her supervisor. That's the only issue here. And I will have to tell my investigators not to do their reports so quickly, not to delay, to wait the 10 days. But that's not the purpose. The purpose is try to immediately rectify an issue if there was something wrong. When these investigators looked at the evidence, when Mr. Hernandez looked at the evidence, when Mr. Villarreal looked at the evidence, the only question was Ms. Sanchez fired because of her age? And they both concluded, no, she was not. What Mr. Shergold talks about progressive discipline. I will tell you right now, this college does not have a progressive discipline policy. We never have. And the reason for that is because it puts a hamstring on the procedures that we follow. If you had a progressive discipline policy, you would have to follow it and be able to give reasons why you're making that progressive discipline. Our policy says if you violate some of these policies, you're subject to immediate termination. And that's in, I believe that's, I can't find it now. DH local, that's exhibit number 11, if I'm not mistaken. And Mr. Shergold, with all due respect, the issue comes back as what is substantially younger. Well, some cases hold something and other cases say other things. There is no bright line. The key here is we did not get rid of Ms. Sanchez due to her age. And the evidence to that is if we were cleaning house for old people, we would not have hired people that were 50 years old or 44 years old in the Human Resources Department. That is clear evidence that we were not going into a pattern or practice of cleaning the house of individuals. And Ms. Garcia, who Mr. Shergold says is younger, she in fact is older. She's 44. Well, to me, that's very young, quite frankly, but that's neither here nor there. Bottom line, the college has presented sufficient evidence to sustain the findings of Oscar Hernandez and Luis Villarreal that Ms. Sanchez was not terminated due to her age. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is approximately 5:30, and this hearing is concluded. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the time here today. This concludes this hearing portion of this matter. The board will now deliberate this matter. We will start by asking if there are any questions from the board to any of the parties or representatives.
From the board?
From the board,
I have questions.
proceed.
I want it known on the record that I had no idea that Kim Sanchez had been fired until I saw it in this file or when I was called by the attorney. So I know, and then I didn't know or have any idea why. I also wanted on the record that I worked with Ms. Sanchez for, I don't know how many years, 18 years, I guess. And she was always an outstanding employee, always. I also want it known that I saw many, in my tenure as a senior administrator, I saw many situations in which an employee violated a policy for whatever reason. Some were grievous and some were not. But it was not the policy of the college to dismiss employees regularly. I want to know if there was a grievance filed prior to her dismissal. Was there a grievance filed against Ms. Sanchez?
No.
Okay, there was no grievance. Do we know of any sort of problem between Ms. Sanchez and her employer?
No.
All right. Was Ms. Sanchez given, I think you answered this question, but tell me, was she given a warning that the solicitation violated a policy? Was she told that?
I think I mentioned to
Yes, you did.
you earlier that in fact she was aware of that solicitation policy, the 3.3,
Now, I want to know if she was told by her supervisor.
not by her supervisor. At that time, Ms. Valderrama was not her supervisor.
Well, who, she had to have had a supervisor.
That was, I forget,
So do we know if Ms. Sanchez was given a warning by her supervisor?
as far as I know, she was not given a warning.
Excuse me?
She was as far as I know, she was not given a warning.
All right,
She was well aware of the policy, though.
I understand that. And in your opinion, obviously, and the opinion of the college, the violation of the solicitation policy was enough to dismiss an upstanding employee with no record of any kind of 18 years. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, because we had no way of determining where those funds were coming, how they were going to be accounted for. And that's the problem, Dr. Zavaleta, is that when you are unable to account for the funds that you say you're soliciting, for whatever reason,
I understand.
for whatever reason, it puts the college, it puts this college, this institution, in direct liability to answer for those funds. And we have no way of knowing if those funds were actually collected and distributed for the purpose that they were intended.
But in this particular case, the decision was made to terminate Ms. Sanchez based on the solicitation.
Yes, sir.
Or
Yes,
the
sir.
violation of the
Yes,
policy.
sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Any further questions from any other board member?
Mr. Chairman, I had an opportunity to work with Ms. Kim Sanchez.
Speaking to the
I
mic.
can't hear you.
Oh, it's not on, that's why. No, it is. It's on. I had an opportunity to work with Ms. Sanchez, and I called her. When we went through the split, I told her she ran the college. I told her she was the president of the college. And I believe that when our president came in, I brought Kim to the president, and I told the president, this young lady ran the college, and she did an outstanding job. I'm biased, tremendously biased, because I love her. I saw her go through the split, and we had many dark moments, as we did with Mr. Perez. This is very difficult, but I know that she's an outstanding employee, and the college would lose somebody that's outstanding. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a final statement, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
You may.
I believe that if this institution or any other institution dismissed employees on as flimsy a situation as this one, there'd be no employees left. That's my opinion.
Any other questions? I have a question. Mr. Shergill, you said that the remedies were in the packet.
Yes, sir. Basically, it's standard reinstatement, media reinstatement, back pay. Those are the main, and there's some others in there, but I'll just let the board read those.
I don't have them.
It's in the, I'm sorry, it's in one of these, it's in the exhibit.
It's in your level 1.
Exhibit 1?
It's in the last page.
Exhibit number, exhibit number 5.
So that's
Page, under number 9, Mr. President.
it's page 5 of 2.
Exhibit 5, number 9.
Last page.
Any page 5 of 2.
No, 5 of 2.
Would you like me to read the remedies into the record?
No.
Oh, Mr. Herrera.
Yes.
Just to respond to Dr. Zavaleta's question of whether she was warned, she was told not to solicit. I think I mentioned that previously.
Thank you, Mr. Peña.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I ask of this board right now, are there any motions from the board?
Now, I have a question of the chair. Will the board be, or is this, or will we be given an opportunity to discuss the issue as a community, as a board? Or is this it?
This is not it.
Okay.
This is not it.
Because I'd hate to make the same mistake we made in a previous case.
This is not it. This is not it. If by the end of the next board meeting, the board takes no action, the decision of the administration is upheld.
Okay, thank you.
So we have till the end of the next board meeting.
And we have to discuss it in open session, is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct, but you have time to simmer, ponder,
Yeah.
and make a fair decision as to what needs to happen in this thing. There being no motion, I will advise that the parties that pursuant to Texas Southmost College DGBA local, the board may give verbal or oral notice of its decision at any time up to and including the board's next regularly scheduled board meeting. The parties are further notified that if the board does not make a decision regarding the complaint by the end of the next regularly scheduled meeting, the lack of response by the board upholds the administrative decision at level 3. Thank you for your time and your presentation. Thank you so much.
May I ask a parliamentary question, please? Thank you, Mr. President. It's my understanding, and you're absolutely correct, that this agenda item can be carried to the next board meeting for further consideration. It's also correct that that would need to be done in open.
We will not have, it will not be an item on the agenda. Our attorneys will, if we make a decision, yea or nay, we will have them contact you.
Yeah, I will.
Is that appropriate?
I will note my objection on the record, because I believe that if there's any decisions or any discussion regarding this matter, it needs to be done and open, as my client's requested, under Texas Open Meetings Act to be done.
Frank?
Why
I am-
wouldn't there be an item on the
Hold on,
agenda?
hold on,
Yeah,
hold on, hold on,
if I-
hold on, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Frank.
Mr. Shergold, what the chair announced as the procedure is correct. If the board does not make a decision here, then it has until the end of the next meeting, regular meeting, to make a decision. Since you've asked for an open hearing, that discussion and any motion that might be made, you'll get notice of it. It will be on the agenda, and you will have an opportunity to attend and listen and witness the discussion or deliberations.
Thank you for that clarification.
And,
It
you're- and Mr. Chair, I'll be in close contact with both attorneys to make sure that all proper notices are given and that everybody's advised of exactly what will be happening and when.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
One last question. Can I tender this case law to Frank, please?
Tender it to opposing counsel,
He has a copy already. I provided it to him.
please.
I'll take it up after, right after this.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sherwood. You may stay as a spectator to our board meeting, otherwise you're excused.
Sure. My wife, I'm going to have to find out if she's going to be able to give me a ride, or maybe I'll stick around for a while until she gets here.
You're welcome to stay if you want to.
All right. Thank you, sir. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item on the agenda is item number 4, public comments. No public comments. Item number 5, President's report. Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Herrera, Board of Trustees. Well, let me start to say that it was great that Texas Southmost College celebrated in-person return to Charro Days by participating and partnering on several traditional events from parades to dances. TSC also hosted Charro Fest, a student and community event held in the North and South Courtyard that included performances by the Child Care Center's Little Scorpions, Mariachi, Siete Leguas, and folklorical group Tepozcali. Attendees were able to participate in games and activities led by our Students Club. I want to thank the Student Life for organizing such a fun event. I can tell you it was a whirlwind week. We're full of amazing and fun-filled events where we were able to reunite with old friends, family, and community members and partners, as well as business and industry partners, to celebrate one of the greatest of Brownsville's and TSC's traditions, Charro Days. I do want to thank the Board of Trustees for their participation in many of the Charro Days festivities. I would also like to report that TSC Child Care Center hosted a read-along on March 2nd to commemorate Dr. Seuss' birthday, which is a nationwide reading celebration that takes place annually and is part of the National Read Across America Day. Mr. Frank Morris, TSC Director of Multimedia, and I had a wonderful time reading to the children. I want to thank the staff of the Child Care Center for the great work they are doing in educating and keeping our children safe, as well as the service they are providing to the communities that we serve. I would also like to inform you that I attended the Early College High School Leadership Cabinet meeting with the Brownsville ISD on March 3rd. Mr. Jose Arambul, Executive Director of High School Programs and Services, and his teams shared information on dual credit during this meeting. We'll be hosting this same group of BISD leaders on our campus mid-April, and I will continue our discussions on increasing and enhancing dual credit opportunities with TSC for BISD high school students. TSC recognized Women History Month by celebrating women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics with STEM is your superpower. A series of community events, one virtual, one in person, to help raise awareness about opportunities for women in STEM related to fields, or related in the fields. The events help raise awareness about opportunities for women in STEM related fields and included 4 interactive panels featuring 12 STEM professionals. The virtual event held on March 1st included panelists in various STEM fields, including an engineer, at Lockheed Martin, who shared their personal stories and journeys to success, as well as provided insight into the various STEM-related careers. The in-person event held on March 4th was a fantastic Friday on the TSC South Lawn that included several hands-on experiments, from test driving a robotic rover and construction workshops to computer engineering, chemistry, and physics. I want to thank Trustee Aldrete for joining us in the event. I'm also proud to report that the TSC architecture students presented their research findings and designs for a community garden to our community partner, the Brownsville Wellness Coalition. The architecture program students worked collaboratively in small teams to create community garden designs that will promote wellness and be a space for the community to enjoy. In addition, the community garden will serve to establish a TSC student food pantry with fresh food options. The presentations showcase the talented students we have here at TSC, and it demonstrates the effectiveness community service projects such as these have on the students, the college, and our communities. It is a wonderful collaboration that I'm looking forward to see become a reality and that our community can enjoy. On March 8th, I received correspondence from the coordinating board regarding the final report on our review of compliance requirements, Texas Education Code, Chapter 51, Subchapter E2 and E3 on Title IX reporting. The coordinating board found that TSC complied with all of the 18 requirements of House Bill 1735. They did note that an item needing improvement, ensuring timely filing of the CEO certifications in accordance to the subchapter E2. Now we've taken the necessary measures to address that, as the report is due on October 31st. We're using a software program called Contract Safe, which tracks reporting and contracts due dates. Next, I would like to report that TSC recently partnered with the United Way of Southern Cameron County, Bullock, Texas State History Museum, and the Cameron County District Attorney Office to host the Not Alone Working Together in the Fight Against Human Trafficking. It's an exhibit at the iTech Center, Central Plaza. The purpose of this exhibit is to create awareness about human trafficking and provides visitors with the tools and resources to find and help support survivors. I would like to thank immediate past Chair Garza and Secretary Alejandro for joining me at the event. I also want to thank the Criminal Justice Institute and the Workforce Training and Continuing Education for coordinating the event. The exhibit will be on display through April 9th at the iTech Center, and we encourage all people to attend. It is open to the public. As part of the TSC's continuing effort to eliminate food insecurity on campus, the college held 2 pop-up food pantry events, one in the morning and another in the afternoon on March 9th at the iTech Center. During the event, TSC distributed a total of 200 bags of food to students in need that included farm fresh produce. The food was provided with the support of the RGV Focus and in partnership with the Brownsville Wellness Coalition. 2 additional pop-up food pantry events are being planned, one on April the 20th at iTech and another in May. The date and location is to be determined. Now, regarding a cybersecurity update, I know it's been on your mind, Dr. Zavaleta, and the rest of our trustees. I would like to call upon Mr. Villarreal to provide an update on the college cybersecurity mitigation efforts. Mr. Villarreal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Rodriguez. Quickly, I just want to let you know, you're probably aware that the U.S. government has been warning colleges and public institutions about the potential for cybersecurity attacks across the entire country, and that if institutions are not taking appropriate safeguards, that we will be very vulnerable. And so I'm happy to announce that our managed services partner, Lucian, has offered us free software, essentially, to help us in our efforts to prevent such attacks on some of our devices. And so we are about to sign a 1-year no-cost agreement with Lucian for them to apply a software called CrowdStrike, which you may have heard of, to our 86 servers. And for your information, we have 86 different servers that run the college. To apply that software on the college servers is no cost to the university. So we were looking into CrowdStrike anyway, and we were prepared to pay for that. And it's not even the licensing that we're gaining from this, basically. It's the configuration and installation of the software on all of those Windows and SQL-based servers. So we just want to let you know, this is part of our cybersecurity plan. Lucian's kind of come forward and as our managed services partner to help us out. And that's my update.
Question,
Yes, sir.
like in our computers at our offices or homes, can we and do we back up our data?
Yeah, we back up our data daily.
Same
Actually, at various increments, depending. So sometimes there's a full backup on a weekend, but generally overnight, we back up only the changes to the data.
And in cyber attacks, do they attack our data that is stored?
They
or saved?
sure do try. They sure do try. And this isn't a comprehensive solution. There are various ways they attack. This will help us protect our servers. Think of it like if you were trying to escape from prison, right? There's always the first fence, the second fence, the electric, right? So we're just putting up more and more fences. And this is one way to help us do that. And in this case, for the first year, there's no cost.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr.
Any other
Villarreal.
questions?
Thank you.
Now I would like to call upon Mr. Tomlinson to provide an update on the TSC Foundation. Mr. Tomlinson.
Good evening, Chair Data, Board of Trustees, and President Rodriguez. Thank you for allowing the opportunity for us to give a brief update on the foundation over the last month. As you can see on the screen, some of the highlighting things that happened during the month of February. For instance, on February 21st, I, along with Dr. Fleischman, attended the ribbon cutting for the Moody Clinic as they celebrate their 70th anniversary this year. So we have our 95th and they have their 70th. Both Dr. Fleischman and I representing the college, as he is on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, and I also serve on the Bienvenidos Committee, which is to welcome new businesses to Brownsville, and or in this case, a special milestone ribbon cutting like they had. February 26th through March 1st, I attended the Council for Advancement and Support of Educational National Conference, gathering with my peers from across the nation. And I'll say, as I continue to grow in my experience overseeing the foundation, this really serves as an excellent opportunity to really expose Texas Southmost College and the great things that we're doing to the entire country. Showing off the great things that are happening at TSCs is always impressive to those I interact with, while discussing how we continue to improve our mission of institutional advancement here on campus. Continuing into March, we are steadfast heading towards the final week before the inaugural gala, and we are currently at 25 tables sold. We're also very fortunate in having received approximately 26 silent auction items. And with regards to the auction items, we will be going live with the items online, and they will be on sale through 10:30 the evening of the gala. This allows for an opportunity, if somebody does not attend, that they will be afforded the opportunity to bid on some amazing items that have been donated. And as of close of business today, the value of those 26 items is close to $9,500 that will be auctioned that evening. We're currently working on a wine and cheese benefit to support the new Center for Legal Studies, and this will be tentatively set for May the 4th, 2022 at the lobby of the Performing Arts Center. And as we get closer, more information on this event will be sent over. We were recently approached by the Valley Symphony Orchestra to collaborate on a possible concert to benefit both the symphony and the TSC Foundation on April 30th at the Performing Arts Center. There is tentatively 2 shows scheduled. One will be a free matinee to the community promoting exposure to the arts for our youth, which has been shown to maximize their learning and developmental potential. The second show will be to benefit the foundation and the symphony through tickets and box sales being sold as we continue to generate funds for scholarships of our local community students. More details to this event will be forthcoming as well. Finally, the TSC Foundation's next board meeting will be on April 20th, 2022, and on my next report, I'll detail any information that is covered at that meeting. Just to finish up, as I usually do at the end of my report, is some visuals, and here's on the April 30th, the tentative concert that is set by the Valley Symphony Orchestra, and as they also celebrate their 70th anniversary this year. And then finally, August the 20th, 2022 is our second annual, which is fast approaching, and it just seems like yesterday we were out there last June with the inaugural tournament. So this concludes my report if y'all have any questions.
How are we doing with the symphony?
Symphony is, it's going to be great, sir. I think there's an agenda item here, but as far as the response that I've been getting back with some people that I've been talking to in the community, they're excited. COVID is on its way out. People want to get out, and it's a Star Wars themed event, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but I think it's going to be real exciting for the community.
From your lips to the Lord's ear.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
When is the wine and cheese?
May 4th,
May 4th,
2022.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tomlinson. Next, I would like to share with you this month's video highlights, the activities that have occurred since we last met. Mr. Morris, can you please run the video?
The bulk of our time will be spent engaging in some brainstorming about how we can strengthen our connections with each other.
We really need your support to be more successful, so our collective impact in serving our communities can work and make a better life and a better community for all.
It was cold.
It was cold but fun. It was cold but fun. I do want to thank everyone for their continued hard work and commitment to our students and to the communities that we serve, and to the support of the board allowing us to make this happen. That concludes my report.
Thank you, President Rodriguez. Thank you very much. Those were fun times. Item 6, consideration possible action on the minutes of the following meetings. Regular meeting, February 23rd, 2022. I will contemplate a motion to approve.
So move it be approved.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. Item number 7, Academic Committee. I'll call on Mr. J.J. Garcia to present the item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Academic Committee meeting was held on Tuesday, March 8, 2022. Present were Mr. De La Garza, Chair Ruben Herrera, President Rodriguez, myself, members of the TSC administration, and the College Legal Counsel. The committee discussed the following item. 7A, consideration and possible action to approve a new clinical affiliation agreement with Mission Regional Medical Center in Mission, Texas. I will call on Dr. Kyle, Vice President of Instruction, and Dr. Pierce, Dean of Health Professions, to present this item.
Thank you, sir. Chair Herrera, Board of Trustee members, President Rodriguez. The agreement that you have before you is a replacement for a previous affiliation agreement. It is for our medical laboratory technology program. It is a one-year agreement with auto renewals, and it has been reviewed and approved by TSC Legal Counsel.
Any discussion?
I have a question. Will the students be provided transportation, or do they find their own way to get to Mission?
Yes, they have their own transportation, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
I move to approve the clinical affiliation agreement between Mission Regional Medical Center for the Medical Laboratory Technology Program and authorize President Rodriguez to sign the agreement.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Next item, 7B, consideration and possible action to approve the amended clinical affiliation agreement with Columbia Rio Grande Regional Healthcare, DBA Rio Grande Regional Hospital. Dr. Kyle will present this item, and Dr. Pierce.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair Herrera, Board of Trustee members, President Rodriguez. This is an amendment to a current affiliation agreement that we have with this facility. This amendment requires proof of COVID-19 vaccination from our students. All of our health professions programs are under this affiliation agreement, and the current expiration date for this agreement is August 31 of '22.
And that's the only amendment?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
This has been reviewed and approved by TSC Legal Counsel.
If no other questions, I move to approve clinical affiliation amendments with Columbia Rio Grande Regional Healthcare, DBA Rio Grande Regional Hospital for the Health Profession Program, and authorize President Rodriguez to sign the agreement.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
7C, consideration and possible action to approve an amended clinical affiliation agreement with Columbia Valley Regional Healthcare System, DBA Valley Regional Medical Center. Dr. Kyle and Dr. Pierce will present this item as well.
Thank you, sir. Chair Herrera, Board of Trustee members, President Rodriguez. This is similar to the previous agreement. This is an amendment to our current affiliation agreement, which expires on August 31 of 2025. It requires proof of COVID-19 vaccination by our students, and is all of our health professions programs are covered under this affiliation agreement.
Any questions? I move to approve clinical affiliation amendments with Columbia Valley Regional Healthcare System, DBA Valley Regional Medical Center for the Health Profession Program and authorize President Rodriguez to sign the agreement.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
7D, consideration and possible action on the articulation agreement between Texas Southmost College, Association of Science in Architecture, and Texas Tech University, Bachelors of Science in Architecture. Dr. Kyle and Dr. Abu Salim will present this item.
Thank you, sir. Chair Herrera, Board of Trustee members, President Rodriguez. This articulation agreement is with our primary transfer partner for our Associate of Science in Architecture degree. All 60 of our semester credit hours will transfer into the program at Texas Tech University. It does have a reverse articulation clause in the agreement so that if our students transfer early, then they can still receive their 2-year degree from us.
Any discussions? I move to approve the proposed articulation agreement between Texas Southmost College, Association of Science in Architecture, and Texas Tech University, Bachelors of Science in Architecture.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question, if I may.
Yes.
This is wonderful, this articulation. Do we seek articulation agreements with any other universities like A&M Corpus Christi or A&M Kingsville or?
So we actually already have agreements with TAMUK in Kingsville, and we're adding, I believe, Dr. McCormick's not here, but about 6 to 8 additional transfer maps as of this past week with
Very
TAMUK.
good. Thank you.
My comment is, I am very, very happy and very proud of the work that you are doing in getting this articulations.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you,
those in
sir.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Now we need to.
motion carries.
7E, consideration and possible action on award of RFP 22-18 bookstore services. I will call on Dr. Kyle, Dr. Fuente to present this item.
Thank you, sir. With your permission, I'd like for Dr. Fuentes to present this item.
Turn off the mic, please.
Good afternoon, TSC Board of Trustees, Chairman Herrera, and President Dr. Rodriguez. I'm here to present the RFP proposal for bookstore services. It is time we get our bookstore. This is the RFP timeline. In 2017, we signed an MOU with UTRGV for them to provide our textbook services. New legislation have passed that we must follow some mandates. Therefore, we are going out for to have our own bookstore contract to provide textbook services. This is the scope of work. We put in option A and option B. It was important that we work with someone who would be flexible and grow with the needs of our students and our institution. The RFP review committee included representation from all divisions, and of course, we had a lot of faculty because they are the group who will use the bookstore services the most as far as textbook adoptions. Scoring tabulation, we received 6 proposals. And the committee scored the highest, Follett Higher Education Group with 78.55. Qualifications, we have worked with Follett under UTRGV and have had a very positive experience. I personally worked with them doing textbooks for the last so many years and a very positive experience. They do have an office warehouse in Texas, which helps with expedited orders. They will also offer textbook scholarships, faculty, staff discounts. They will also assist when if we decide to go for a campus store with renovation and construction of up to $125,000. We've also included our scoring and the review criteria that we use for all RFPs. This will not impact the budget as far, the textbooks would be with a commission on top of the price of the books. And so today we asked for this, to award RFP 2218 for bookstore services to Follett.
I move to award RFP 22-18 for the bookstore service to Follett Higher Education Group, Inc., and authorize President Rodriguez to execute the contract as presented.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on this item?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Are the books that will be sold at the bookstore will be selected by the faculty, is that correct?
That's correct. I will work with them to do textbook adoptions, and then the students will have options. They could be rental, used, digital, hard copy, and they will either be mailed, depending on the contract, to us or to the student at their home for free standard shipping.
And will, for example, in departments where we have multiple faculty, like, let's say, government or sociology, will all faculty use the same textbook? Go ahead.
Every department's different. Some departments, they have adopted the same textbook. Others have chosen to either use an adopted textbook or use ORE, Open Education Resources. So it just depends on the department. But they do adopt a textbook.
Okay. All right.
The bookstore can facilitate either way, though. The company will.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Fuentes, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the RFP scope of work, where it says an inclusive access course fee-based course materials with the option of transition, can you just kind of explain that to me, please?
Yes, of course. So this bookstore gives us the option, does not mean we will go with that option, but in the future, if we chose to adopt a course-based fee where the textbook course fees would be included in the tuition and fees, and as a board, you would adopt that in your tuition and fee table, then every student would receive all their course materials before the first class day. We will not be doing that for this time around because there's just not enough time. We would just do a typical textbook adoption where books would be either mailed to the student or to the institution. But we picked a company that in the future, if we chose to go that route, it's an option for us to pursue or to explore.
Somewhere where I was reading, it said that the students had to have their books 30 days before class started.
So no, the state of Texas mandates that we must provide textbook information to the students and community 30 days before the first class date. So when they make a decision to enroll in a class, they have all that information for transparency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to receive a report after the beginning of the semester that shows any variation in a department in textbook adoption. That's one of my pet peeves, and I'd like to know, for example, in government or history, or those departments where there are multiple faculty teaching this introduction, how many different textbooks are used and what the textbook is. I don't need names of people.
We can certainly provide that, but again, the department adopts a textbook or they choose to do open education resources, one or the other, depending on the department. But we can offer, we can give you that information.
The dean oversees that, so
Yes,
it's
that
not
is
solely
correct.
the decision of the department.
It's the department chair and the dean, that is correct.
Thank you.
To provide consistency and also consistency with our partnerships, our dual credit partnerships.
Thank you.
Will
Thank
you
you.
provide that report to Dr. Zavaleta, please?
I'm sorry?
Will you provide that report?
Of course, of course.
Thank you so much. All those in
Thank you.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Next item, Finance Committee. I'll call Ms. Garza to present the item.
The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, March the 8th, 2022. Present were Ms. Eva Alejandro, President Rodriguez, myself, members of the TSC Administration and College Legal Counsel. The committee discussed the following items. Consideration and possible action on adoption of the 2022 Historic Preservation Plan resolution granting tax exemptions to eligible historic sites listed in the 2022 Historic Preservation Plan adopted by the City of Brownsville. And I'll call on Dr. Figueroa to present this item.
Thank you, Ms. Garza. Chairman Herrera, members of the board, President Rodriguez, before you have for your consideration and possible action to adopt the 2022 Historic Preservation Plan. In the past, the City of Brownsville has asked us at this time to consider the reduction of taxes at 100% for National Register Historic Homes, recorded Texas historic landmarks, and substantial renovations of historic homes are proposed, and 50% for local designated private resources. If the board adopts this, what it will mean to the district is foregoing about $21,867 of tax revenue.
How much?
Are there any questions for me?
21,000?
$21,867, sir.
I move to adopt the 2022 Historic Preservation Plan resolution granting tax exemptions to eligible historic sites listed in the 2022 Historic Preservation Plan adopted by the City of Brownsville.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second?
There's a motion, a second. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
8B, monthly financial statement report for the month ended January 31st, 2022. Dr. Figueroa and Mr. Pacero.
Thank you, Ms. Khan.
Before you start, can I make a comment? It is so nice to see the financial reports of 2 months ago as opposed to 8 months ago, sometime back. Thank you so much.
With your permission, I'll have Mr. Pacero, our controller, to present the financial report ended January 31st.
Boy, you're in a good mood, Mr. Herrera.
Huh?
¿Le dieron feria de más?
El león cree que todos son de su condición, but anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Figueroa. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, President Rodriguez, I have for you the monthly financial statements for the month of January 2022. The format of the report is similar to what the board has seen in prior months. I'll be concentrating my presentation on the column labeled January, which will be this column right here, if I can get the pointer to work really good there. It's not the pointer, it's the hand. All right. Moving along. There are 3 funds that we adopt a budget for, and I'll begin with the Education and General Fund. For the month of January, we have total revenue in the month of January of $2,498,753. On the next slide is where the expenditures category begin for the general fund. And there are 2 subtotals on this slide, which are on that column, $1,255,892 for salaries and wages, and towards the bottom of the slide, $371,444 for benefits. If we move on to the next slide, is where our M&O category begins, and that category will go on for that slide, the next, and conclude on that slide there. The bottom there of the slide, we can see a subtotal, $1,042,674. And as we have mentioned before in prior meetings, all of the expenditures are detailed by description. They're on that left column, and we can see all the activity and the related amounts for each of the funds that we present.
Okay.
Go ahead and move on to the next slide where we have subtotals for travel towards the top of $2,560, and at the bottom of that slide for general institutional of $188,561. If we move to the next slide, we have a subtotal at the top of the page for scholarships, $67,725. Towards the middle of the slide, we have our budget amendments expenditure category, that's $707,031. And almost at the bottom of that column, we have a subtotal for all expenditures in general fund, $3,635,887. So that's revenue and expenditures for the general fund. We move on to the next slide. It's where the second of the 3 funds begins. And we have revenue. We have a subtotal at the bottom there, $295,981. That's all the revenue in auxiliary fund. Moving on to the next slide, we have 2 subtotals. $102,864 for salaries and wages, and $26,085 for benefits. Go to the next slide. We have our M&O category, which runs through that slide and then concludes on the following. And as we can see there, the subtotal is $66,575 for the M&O category. On our next slide, we have a subtotal for travel at the top of the slide, $7,485. And almost at the bottom of that slide, we have a subtotal for all expenditures in auxiliary, $203,009. That's all revenue, all expenditures for auxiliary. Moving on to the third fund. We have activity in revenue, but no expenditures in it this month for the general obligation and revenue bond funds. At the bottom of the slide, $386,157 is the subtotal for the revenue in that fund. On the subsequent slides, we have activity or the detail for the benefits. We have two subtotals there for the general fund and for the auxiliary fund. As we can see there, highlighted, $902,803 and $66,932. On this slide, we have our subtotals related to fund balance, and the top number that we have there at the top of this slide, that $23,842,184, that ties to the audited financial statements that were presented by our auditors. We see all our activity and then a subtotal for the estimated fund balance, $23,259,444 at the end of January 31st. On the subsequent slides is all of our debt service tables, and since the last time that we presented these slides, there are no changes to those tables. With that, I'll conclude my presentation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, I'd like to try and answer those.
This item was for information purposes only, no action is required. 8C, Institutional Care Expenditure Report. Dr. Figueroa?
Yes, ma'am. Chairman Herrera, members of the board, President Rodriguez, before you have the new balance of the expenditures on the CARES from year to date. The new expenditures that we're presenting up to this month is $380,915. And on the subsequent slides in your report, you have the detail that compresses that $390,000.
That's it?
Do you have those expenditures itemized, or was that what that was?
That's what it was, sir.
Okay.
Each column.
You don't need to go over it.
That was especially created for you.
Excuse me, it was made for me, yes.
That item
Was made for me.
especially created
It
for
should
you.
be, as it
Every
should be.
month, they add something to it, but it's for you.
Thank you.
This was also for informational purposes only. No action is required. Dr. Figueroa, when we had and I don't see it here, or maybe it's here. When we had the meeting, I asked you to provide us with that question that I had for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in here, or did we?
No, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. You wanted it for next month when we had
Did I say
the
that?
report.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I just,
It will be in your packet.
okay, thank you. Okay, 8D, grants report for February 2022. Dr. Figueroa? Dr.
Yes.
Fuentes? Dr. Fuentes?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Fuentes will have the honor of presenting this item.
I'm here to present everyone's favorite part of the board meeting, grants awarded to Texas Southmost College. We were awarded 3 additional funds. The first one from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. It's a Texas Completion Repayment Grant. No, that's a typo. I apologize for that. It's the $140,000 grant is for paid internships. And the second grant is additional funds from Perkins for $45,000. And the last, I'm happy to announce, we were awarded a Valley Baptist Legacy Foundation grant in the amount of $107,000, which will support our community gardens.
And those are funds that are approved by the legislature? There have to be, because the coordinating board doesn't have any.
Yes, they're all, the Texas Higher Education are pass-through. The foundation is Valley Baptist.
yeah.
Yes, but the first two are federal pass-throughs.
Thank you.
Okay, this item was for information purposes only also. 8E, consideration and possible action to approve 95th anniversary community event in partnership with the TSC Foundation. Mr. Tomlinson?
Good evening again, Chair Odetta, Board of Trustees, and President Rodriguez. As I mentioned in the director's report, that the college had been approached by the Valley Symphony Orchestra to collaborate on a concert on April the 30th, 2022 at our Performing Arts Center with a theme night of Star Wars. They had already had a scheduled concert scheduled in McAllen on April the 29th, and because they were flying in a soloist from the Boston Symphony, they were wishing to expose the symphony to Cameron County and to our immediate area. Therefore, we have been in communication with their director and are attempting to finalize an MOU to present with regards to the concert for our area. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to showcase the symphony, but also a world-renowned soloist from the East Coast. I'm here today presenting the request for the amount of $16,000 in order to cover the cost of the matinee show for the college. Those that would be given the opportunity to attend the free matinee show in the afternoon would be our local students from the 21st Century Program, junior high and high school band students, and other nonprofit art groups that are solely focused on the youth. I stand before you today with this request and am confident that with Texas Southmost College supporting this matinee performance, it will provide the foundation with the additional support to seek additional funding to cover the expenses and not only provide an educational setting and expose our youth of our community to the arts, we will also be able to enhance our institutional development mission and raise additional funds for scholarships for our community students. And honestly speaking, if this goes well, I think we would really do a great collaboration with the symphony and being able to provide additional concerts in our beautiful arts center multiple times a year, which would bring additional exposure of our college and the great things that we're doing on campus. I'll attempt to answer any questions if you have any.
I move to approve financial support of $16,000 towards the April 30th, 2022 Valley Symphony 95th Anniversary Community Event in partnership with TSC Foundation.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second that.
There's
Any
a motion
discussion?
and a second. Any discussion?
I would, you mentioned you were going to be inviting the bands,
Yes, ma'am.
school
From the
bands.
local school districts.
Let's also invite the Estudiantina because they've come to play for us for free during and they're the ones that play, remember, during the Dia de los Muertos, and then they've come to other events. Sometimes they forget about the Estudiantina kids.
Yes, ma'am.
It's a small group.
I have a question.
Then we
Yes,
hace
sir.
conjunto.
JJ, I know you want to ask something? Okay. It will be open to the community free of charge.
Absolutely.
And anyone from Southmost, from anywhere, can come. How are we going to allot tickets for this event?
So from my understanding, what the understanding was is that we were going to reach out to those students that were specific in the programs that we're associating with the college, which would have been, the 21st Century Program, all of our students that would come in from the local school districts, they would be the invitees for that show.
So that's for the free matinee.
Yes, sir.
The free.
The free matinee and the 2 o'clock.
Precisely, but this is a matinee for the community, or is it a matinee for students?
Students.
For the students.
For students, so
And we're going to invite across our districts, those Fresnos.
Yes, ma'am.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I'm going to be absent.
No wine and cheese?
I probably will be here with my mother.
This concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is item number 9, Student Services. Dr. Zavaleta.
Yes, sir. The Student Services Committee met via Zoom on Wednesday, March 9th of this year. Present were Ms. Aldrete, Chair Herrera, President Rodriguez, and myself, as well as members of the TSC administration and legal counsel. The committee discussed a single item as follows. 9A, Student Services Update, Mental Health and Counseling Services Presentation. Mr. Villarreal.
Thank you, Chairman Herrera, Board of Trustees, Dr. Rodriguez. As you know, over the last couple of years, particularly during the pandemic, mental health has been on our minds. This is an information-only item to present to you what we've been doing as a college to provide mental health services and accessibility resources to our students. With your permission, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Armando Ponce, Executive Director of Student Life and Civility, assuming the microphone can go that high.
Thank you, Mr. Vidal. Chairman Herrera, members of the board, Dr. Rodriguez. I just want to share with you some of the initiatives that we've currently undertaking, as Mr. Vidal had stated. Since the onset of COVID, we've had an influx of students coming in seeking counseling. So fortunately, we just recently hired a new counselor with a wealth of experience, Mr. Mario Garcia, who's here with us today. And I just wanted to give you an overview of the different types of counseling, different types of services that we make available to our students. So as you see, we do, individual, family, couple. We also do workshops, and oftentimes we have students who maybe have some issues in the classroom, behavioral issues. We pair them up with a counselor and offer them anger management courses, in developing interpersonal skills. These are some of the things that we do outside of the traditional, professional type counseling. Now, in line with that, the counseling office also offers accessibility services. So students that need accommodations at the high schools, students who have traditionally been tracked with a special education program are given modifications. At our institution, we do accommodations at the college, university level. It can be anything from alternative textbooks. We provide sign language interpreters. We have students who are visually impaired. We have Braille services. And one thing that I did want to really highlight was last fall, the board approved new technology to be purchased for our accessibility office. And this has been a really wonderful addition that allows our students really to carry this software anywhere they go. The software is called Kurzweil 3000. Students are given access to download this to their devices. So we have a lab at our office where they can come and maximize some of these resources. But if they can't make it to the lab, especially with the influx of students taking online courses, they can do it from their home. They can do it at one of the other outside labs, and things like a screen reader. If an instructor provides a PDF handout, they can actually run it through the program and it'll read it to them. So it really is of great value, and we definitely appreciate the board giving us those funds to purchase the software. It's made a significant difference. And just to give you an idea of how we operate, we do a case management type approach. When students come in, once they're registered with our accessibility office, we help them with the registration process. We serve as liaisons between the faculty and the students if there's any issues within the classroom. And also, we refer students to social services if needed. Say if a student maybe is having some financial difficulties, some food insecurities, we tie them up with Health and Human Services, with programs like through Workforce Solutions, programs that can possibly offer them free childcare. And that's another aspect of our office that we try to provide for our students. And just to mention some of the community partners, we partner obviously with the Mental Health Authority, Texas Tropical here in the Valley. Some of these other, like the Methodist Healthcare Ministries, they offer free counseling. Say if a student doesn't feel comfortable taking counseling with our counselor, we try to refer them out and make sure they're connected to the right resource. And as you see, some of the District Attorney's Office, which we've partnered with for several years now, and some of the other nonprofits that oftentimes we bring them onto campus, and we actually give workshops to students so they can be informed and educated about all the community resources that are out there. One thing that I did want to also discuss was the on-campus crisis intervention. An asset of having a counselor here on campus is a couple of times throughout the semester we may have some students that may have some difficulties, maybe a breakdown, maybe symptomatic, our counselor is able to provide those services, do those type of screening, and really give the students the support and the research they have. I just want to end that, throughout the semester, from the beginning of the semester, we make sure that students are aware that these services are available, that we're here to assist them, and to make sure that they leave here with all the resources that are available, and hopefully with completed credential. So I'll open to any questions that the board may have.
I'm glad we're getting this presentation because there's no other way we would have known, the board. So I appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you just show the other slides that are pending? So the activities that we have?
Oh, sure. And I just want to, some of the programs we do throughout the year, one thing, we're also bound to do alcohol and drug awareness throughout the semester. We offer those programs as well to make sure that, again, our students are informed. We do some workshops, some conference in the fall and in the spring semester as well.
I have two questions, if I may. The first is, do we keep records as far as how many students access the services and what kind of services, so that at the end of the year, we can have an annual report? Are you doing that?
Yes, we do. We keep records. We have the Maxon software they use to document behavioral issues, and also we have to document who's actually receiving accommodations and access in our services.
The second question is, do we provide faculty with any sort of services to train them? If that may not be the right word, but certainly faculty might need help in knowing what to do if they encounter, as I did, a hostile student. If a student stands up in class and says, "I'm going to shoot you and kill you," obviously it didn't work, didn't happen, but I think faculty would appreciate some training courses.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Dr. Savella. That's something I'm actually working on. We're actually going to do a mental health first aid training for our faculty. Right? We're going to do that in partnership with Tropical Texas, so they can be aware to recognize those incidents and how to handle those types of situations. Okay. So that's something that's kind of across the country is being done, mental health first aid.
Thank you very much. No problem. That concludes my report. I don't know, Alejandro, any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you.
Next item is Facilities Committee. I'll call on Ms. Science to present the items.
The Facilities Committee met on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022. Present were Ms. Eva Alejandro, President Rodriguez, myself, members of the TSC administration, and College Legal Counsel. The committee discussed the following item. 10A, consideration and possible action on award RFP 22-19 for windstorm and hail insurance. I call on Dr. Figueroa and Mr. Jaime Salazar to present this item.
Now I have to lower the mic. Thank you, Ms. Science, Chairman Herrera, members of the board, President Rodriguez. Before you, you have a request of proposal 2219. This is for windstorm and hail insurance. Mr. Jaime Salazar will be presenting this item.
Chairman Herrera, Board of Trustees, President Rodriguez, thank you for the opportunity. We'll get right through this. Okay, here's the RFP timeline that you all had in your packets. We started back in January. We presented to the committee in March, and here we are tonight presenting it to you all. The RFP scope of work, the current total insured value, the TIV, for TSC buildings and content property is $246,658,958. That consists of approximately 63 buildings, mainly located at 84 Brown here at the main campus. Other buildings are located at ITech, and I do want to mention that this does not include South Padre Island. That's under TWIA. So we went out and here is a pricing tabulation. So what I want to do, just spend a couple of seconds here. So what I want to do is just focus on two things. First of all, fiscal year 20 to 21, the total building value was $229.9 million. In this year, because of additions and construction that we've had and fixing up of the roofs, et cetera, that went up to 246 million, 0.6. So there's a difference there. We had an increase in value. Second point. Number one, I want to walk you through, ma'am, do you have a question?
Well, yes. I mean, we fix buildings and now it's more expensive?
Yes, ma'am.
You would think
It
it would be
increased
the
the
other way
value.
around, no?
In addition to some contents as well.
Oh,
So
okay.
it increased in value. So there's been a value increase, point number one. Point number two, I want to walk you through number one, and then that'll apply to the four. Number one, 200 for the TIV, for the total building value, 246,659,958. That would be a premium of $1 million, $1,013,785. The difference in premium, that would be an increase of $414,000. That's a 69% increase. That is for 100% coverage. So let's get that one out there. The deductible for that would be 3% of whatever the incident may be, whatever the damage was in any particular incident. So that's how that table reads. Having said that, you have the options, number one, 100% coverage for $246 million at $1 million. You would have option number two, $150 million, and that would be at $849,000. You would have the third option at $125 million. That's at $791,000, which obviously you can see number three is going to be our recommendation. I'll explain why. And number four is for coverage of $100 million at $687,000, all the way across the board. And you can see where some of those numbers stayed the same. Number of exposure. The number of exposure is the risk that we are assuming by not covering 100% of our buildings. Now, I'll let you know, we do have Shepherd, Walton, and King here, and we also have our consultants as well for risk, and I'll explain this. The odds of having a total catastrophic loss of 100% of our buildings and contents is pretty slim. Is there a possibility? Absolutely. But the risk that we are taking by paying that full amount, it's not prudent. It's just not. So what we are recommending, after having hired a consultant and going over this not only with Shepherd, Walton, and King, but with our consultants and advisors, is this. The recommendation number three at 125 million coverage. That is 51% of all of our buildings. That would mean if we had a major event and 50% of our buildings went down, including contents, we would be able to cover that. Anything above that would be the risk. But that is where we feel that we wouldn't have that situation. I've been talking a lot, so I'll pause there.
One additional comment on that. In addition to having that coverage, we also have a restricted insurance fund in our operating budget. Well, not in the operating budget because it's restricted. In our funds, we have a restricted fund for about $1.5 million. That is an insurance, extra insurance that we have to either pay the premium, the 3%, or any additional losses that we were to have. So that's partially self-insured. So it's not that we just won't be covering half of our buildings or 49% of our buildings, but we also have that additional funds that is restricted for insurance use only. That has been the case for the past few years.
My question is, if I may, is at what percent did we purchase insurance last year? Did you say that? Like you're recommending, I assume.
We were at 100% last year.
32%, and last year we were?
Yes, sir. And you can
At
see
what?
where the price went up.
$5.99.
In fiscal year 2021, that first line, at 229 million, which was our TIV, our premium was 599,000. This year, for 246, it would be $1 million. So it did go up quite a bit.
70%.
70%.
I have a question. When they say it covers 51%, any 51%, or are they going to dictate to us which 51%?
Any loss.
Any 51%.
Any 51%.
Ouch.
Another question is also, I know that some policies I once read, I might be wrong, that if the winds were coming from east to west, it didn't cover. But if the winds were coming from west to east, it covered. Here we're covered, whichever way they come, for 51% of the buildings only.
Yes?
But the thing is that money that you say that we have, will that cover the other 49%? No.
I'm sorry, what was?
The money that we have, the restricted funds you were talking about, would that cover our 49%
Yes.
remaining?
Well, not the
Not
full
really.
amount, but
Only-
it will help with any of that.
It's only $1 million.
Only.
Won't cover.
Only.
Well, I mean,
It's like a risk.
in the big picture, it's only $1 million.
I'm not willing to roll the dice. I think we should
Me
insure
either.
it at 100%.
I don't,
I don't.
I don't,
I'm gonna, well,
I like to gamble.
is this up for vote?
I don't know, is it?
it's,
Question,
oh, Diosito santo.
is it?
Yes?
What's the motion?
But we need a motion.
We need a
Before we-
motion and then.
Okay,
we-
so how much money is the difference between, hold on,
Would you
before the
all want to
motion?
hear from the consultant, from Valley Risk Consulting, on why the recommendation was?
Yes,
Please.
yes.
There is a rope, just in case.
I'll have to lower it down here just a little bit because the tall guy had it.
I know.
Good evening, Chairman Herrera and President Rodriguez and members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Roger Garza, and I'm a licensed risk manager for Valley Risk Consulting, and we're very familiar with some of the issues that you may have this evening. However, as we had described, some of the events to your staff and as well as to other staffs across the valley is, the probabilities of a windstorm that's going to wipe out the entire block of buildings is very remote. In fact, we spoke about it. I said, what is the event? Because we do a lot of work here in Cameron County. It would be a tsunami of a magnitude that you've never seen before, and that would be under flood. It would have to be a hurricane that would have winds sustaining at 165 miles an hour that would target just exactly here where it's not actually broad. So there are issues and there are risks, but to summarize it, to lose everything in one event is unheard of. We haven't seen it before. I'm sure it's happened sometime in our lifetimes. We never heard of it, but in this probability here, it's very remote. And a lot of districts, a lot of entities are taking the same type of risk as you are, or that we're proposing that you take, is try to ensure only what you're going to lose, not try to ensure the entire value. And you're right, ma'am, those were good questions. Sometimes you hear about east and west. There's no probabilities here, it's just a windstorm loss, but
And
that's a
then
good
the wind is
question.
coming from the south. And
Yeah.
Joking.
They are good
And they're like, oh, you're
questions.
not covered.
And in a perfect world where everything is valued as current, you would say, yes, insure everything 100%. But even your homes are only valued to a certain amount of values. They're not covered at 100%. You're still seeing a lot of these 3% increases. And, the agents are here, they can tell you, they're even going up to 5% deductible amounts. So there's a lot of changes in the market going on right now, particularly what's happening with all the wildfires.
Any questions? Okay.
I don't have any questions. Anybody?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, move with them.
So at this point, number 3 is our recommendation at this point. And this was the review committee. The consideration selection criteria that we use, excuse me. The rest of the selection criteria. Budget and financial impact, these expenses will be coming from the approved budget for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
I move to award RFP 22-19 for windstorm and hail insurance to Shepherd Walton King Insurance Group in the amount of $791,659 for option number 3, and authorize President Rodriguez to execute the purchase order contract as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any discussion?
I have a question. Is there Chepper, Walton, and King anymore? Or did we just keep the name? Did y'all just keep the name?
Hi, yes, my name is Raul
Pasa.
Uh-huh.
I was the president of Shepherd Walton King. And now I am an owner in Shepherd Walton King, which is a Hub International company.
Okay.
And so the company is still there. All the people are still there, save for Mr. Shepherd, who retired.
Mr. Walton did too.
Yeah, Mr. Walton did not.
So there's no, Shepherd is not, and Walton is gone.
We got out of the hurricane.
Barnett has been there like 36. So it's the same kind of people.
Thank you. I have no questions.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed. I'm not opposed to Shepherd Walton King. I've always supported them for many years. But I believe we should be funding our insurance at a higher level. So I have to vote against it.
The ayes have it, motion passes.
Okay.
Item 10B, consideration and possible action on award of RFP 22-20 for roof repairs at iTech and Armory Building. I call on Dr. Gisela Figueroa and Mr. Jaime Salazar to present this item.
Thank you, Ms. Hines.
Armory.
Chairman Herrera, members of the board, President Rodriguez, before you, you have RFP 2220, which is roof repairs for iTech and Armory Building. This RFP, we issued combining two small projects, hoping to gain economies of scale, and we were surprised to find the results, but Mr. Salazar will present that to you.
Chair Herrera, Board of Trustees, President Rodriguez, thank you again. Here is the RFP timeline that was in your packets. As you can see, March 24th, today, we're proposing to the board. A little bit on these slides here. So on the far right, as you can see, this is our attempt to just give you just a depiction, an idea as to where all of the leaks are. So as you can see, everything that you see within one of those boxes, that's where we have a leak. So it's almost the entire rooftop. You can see the aerial photograph there. We attempted to put little small dots on it, but it's hard to see. So on the far right, you get a better idea that it's throughout the entire space. Project number 2 is the iTech canopy roof repairs. We have spoken to you all about this in the past. The biggest thing here is that we needed to add some additional replacements, drain replacements up top. And on the right, you can see the infrastructure damage that we had. On the far right of the screen, you can see the commercial type of recessed LED lamp lighting that we will be putting in place, in addition to the sprinkler system that will go throughout the entire infrastructure of the building to ensure that we have correct lighting and the fire sprinkler system. The RFP committee, you can see the representatives there from maintenance and myself, and we had Ms. Marcela Juarez, Mr. Raul Hernandez, and Mr. Raul Khan. RFP scoring tabulation, the way that we've broken this one up is the respondents were all on the left. Project number 1, and you see the bids that came in for that particular project. Project number 2, the respective bids there. The total for both projects all the way across. You can see in the location where the businesses are housed and the respective scores on the right. What you see in light green is our recommendation. We're proposing G's Phoenix Construction Company LLC for project number 1 at $46,000 and J&N King Incorporated at $89,985 for project number 2, giving us a total of $135,985. The RFP review criteria continued. Budget and financial impact. This expense will be coming from the approved budget for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Have we used these companies before?
Yes, ma'am.
We have.
Yes.
I move to award RFP 22-20 for roof repairs at iTech and Armory Buildings to G's Phoenix Construction Company, LLC for Project 1 in the amount of $46,000 and to J&N King, Inc. for Project number 2 in the amount of $89,985 plus 10% contingency for each individual project to cover unforeseen events, and authorize President Rodriguez to execute the contracts as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
And the last item is facilities update. Dr. Figueroa and Mr. Salazar will present on this item.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Mr. Salazar will be providing a quick update on our major projects and that we have on the campus.
Chairman Herrera, Board of Trustees, President Rodriguez, we'll skim through these. The facilities project list includes ITech Village roof renovation, campus parking lot improvements, courtroom and criminal justice project, Oliveras Student Services Center, second floor, and the second floor restroom additions project. On the ITech Village roof renovation, the work in process. Asbestos removal and demolition work continues on the first floor. We're going to show you some pictures here in a second. 14 out of the 26 joist repairs are completed on the first floor. Asbestos removal and demolition work is completed on the second floor. Our milestones. Installation material is on back order until April timeframe. Installation of the insulation material and shell space preparation anywhere between April through August 2022. And the project completion date is still estimated in August of 2022. Here we have some good photos of the first floor and the second floor. So the project is moving along. Campus parking lot improvements project status. Work in progress. We're at about 95% construction documents completed. TSC met with the engineer on February 23rd to review the CDs. Our engineer is currently working on 100% of the CDs for the RFP. Once we have that, then we'll shape out and publish the scope of work for the RFP. Our milestones. RFP to be released on March 2022. That should be released here any day now. And RFP results to be presented to the board on April 2022. And the project is expected to be completed during the summer to early fall timeframes. Here's a Fort Brown. The base proposal is the TSC main campus. And then alternate number 1 is the front section, both the left and the right side, or east and west sides of the iTech Center. And then alternate number 2 is the back end.
Okay.
The courtroom and criminal justice program project status. Work in progress as well. The electrical and plumbing plans have been finalized. So the city permit is in the process. Courtroom furniture millwork production will start in March 2022. That's been delayed a little bit simply because of the back order on supply chain for material. Classroom furniture designs are being finalized. The milestones. Classroom furniture proposal is expected to be presented to the board in April 2022, and the courtroom furniture millwork should be finished by July 2022 as well. That's a schematic that you all have seen of the courtroom and criminal justice program building. Oliveira second floor cafeteria project. Mr. Escudero from UMix has provided the proposed layout. The permits have been submitted to the city of Brownsville. City reps have visited the cafeteria on a couple of times now and provided their observations and our feedback. Our space modifications is in compliance with the observations. Basically, they made some recommendations. We agreed with them. The additional equipment is being purchased The milestones, the electrical, plumbing, and construction job will start in March 2022. And that is a schematic.
Scorpion Cafe.
Oliveira Student Services Center, second floor restroom additions. The mechanical engineering and plumbing, the MEP plans are finalized. RFP is currently being advertised. It's open now. RFP pre-proposal conference was held on Thursday, February the 24th. Our RFP results will be presented to the Board of Trustees in April-May timeframe of 2022. Schematic we showed you all. That is all of the updates, unless anyone has any questions. Thank you very much for your time.
This item was for information purposes only. No action is required. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Sines. Next item is item number 11, Policy Committee. I'll call Ms. Andrete to present
The Policies Committee met via Zoom on Wednesday, March 9th, 2022. Present were Ms. Eva Alejandro, Chair Ruben Herrera, President Rodriguez, myself, members of the TSC admin and College Legal Counsel and Board Legal Counsel. The committee discussed the following items. 11A, consideration and I call in Mr. Ruben Peña.
Good afternoon. The first policy in your packet is CM Local. We discussed this in the committee meeting. This deals with the emergency exception in case of a catastrophic event occurring here on campus. The board shall be advised as soon as practical of the effects. In other words, if things have gone down so that the board is aware of what's going on. The board chair shall attempt to convene a meeting of the board consistent with board policy. And the purpose of that is to determine the course of action required to address the effects of any catastrophe that has occurred or natural disaster. If the board cannot meet for whatever reason, then the board shall notify the college president, and the board thereby delegates to the college president the authority to contract for replacement of construction or repair. And then the chair will then report intermittently to the board at the next regular meeting of any contract made under this authority. The next policy is DK Local. It's on the second page. This is professional development. This was a policy that we had last month, I believe, that's similar to board cybersecurity training. This one, however, is for employees, and those employees that are required to be trained in cybersecurity. The college president is again authorized to designate or determine the list of cybersecurity training programs certified by the Department of Information Resources. And then the individuals who actually are required to have this training shall take it and and the president will verify and report to DIR the form required by DIR compliance. And then if they don't, then the college president can stop their use of any computer equipment. The next policy is ECC Local. This one only, on this page, discusses only the normal course load for summer session to be 6 semester hours for each 5-week term, or 12 for semester hours for a full summer. This maximum summer course load would be 8, and for one term, 16 for a full summer semester. On the following page, ECC discusses the exceptions. Well, I should say the exceptions for good cause. Will a student be permitted to exceed the limit of the number of drop courses for any of the following reasons? And we have all those already listed in our policy. But we have an additional one, which is number 8. Again, if a disaster should occur declared by the government, prevents or limits in-person course attendance for a period that significantly affects the student's ability to participate in coursework, then they qualify to drop that course. There's an exception for re-enrolled students, and the exception is for the COVID-19 pandemic, where a course dropped by a student during the 2020 spring or summer session or the 2021 academic year because of a bar or limit on in-person course attendance due to COVID-19 may not be counted toward the limit on the number of drop courses. In other words, if a person should not be able to take that, then dropping that course will not be counted against that student. Going on to FLB, if you'll turn to page 3 of 5 on FLB, that just adds firearm silencers to the knives, clubs, firearms, etc., that are prohibited devices on our campus. The next policy is GD Local. This one I will turn over to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Pettis, since he's the one that kind of developed this with TASB.
Yes, we asked TASB to go ahead and draft this particular policy for us. The policy is taking into consideration the renewal of Charro Days in Brownsville and its increasing popularity and the people's want or desire to use TSC's facilities. So TSC drafted, you'll see that in red, on page 1 of 7 and 2 of 7 are the amendments that we're talking about. What the amendments do is allow or require people who want to use any of TSC's facilities in connection with any event, whether they're going to sponsor it, host it, or anything, in connection with Charro Days, and they want to use TSC's facilities, any type of facilities, whether it's parking, buildings, or anything, that they submit a written proposal to the district, to the president and his designee, within 90, or before 90 days of the proposed event. This will give the college district and the board time enough to review the proposal, coordinate all of the things that are being requested of the college for that period of time, and allow the board enough time to act on it if that's appropriate. The president of the college or his designee will write a written report to the board that will consist of what types of fees that will be charged according to our policy, the risks that might be inherent to that particular use request by the people of the community that want to use facilities, and the nature of the contractual provisions that might be necessary to protect the college facilities, including insurance provisions and indemnity provisions. This written report will be provided to the board, and written updates will be provided to the board as negotiations by the administration proceed with the people who want to use the facilities. Once and if the administration feels it's appropriate to submit this to the board for the board's approval of the use of the facilities, they will do so in writing. It'll be on the board's agenda, and the board will consider it and act on it. If the board approves this particular use, then it will be submitted to the administration for preparation of the written use agreement that'll have all of the provisions that the administration has negotiated with the user. I think this is necessary for the board and for administration to control the use of its facilities in this very exciting and necessary time for the city of Brownsville.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, take the mic back from you, Mr. Pettis. The last one is CF Local. If you will look on page 1 of 3, the only change to CF Local is you will see the marking towards the bottom for amounts less than $5,000. The method of purchasing will be open market. That's changed from $2,000 to $5,000, and the amounts ranging from $5,000 to $24,999.99. Method of purchase shall require a minimum of 3 written quotes. Those are the only changes on CF Local. That concludes.
I move to approve the local policies as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. Any discussion on these items?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And now, item 12, we shall convene an executive session. The board will now convene an executive session as provided by Government Code, Chapter 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. We're now in executive. The board will now reconvene item 13, action on executive sessions. Do I have any motion?
Yes, I move that the TSC board approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 salary schedule as presented in executive session.
There is a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, announcement for next meeting dates. Regular board meeting Thursday, April 21st, 2022 at 5:30. Regular board meeting Thursday, May 19th, 2022 at 5:30. Any
May
discussion on this?
May 19th?
Hold on. April 21st.
And May 19th.
Okay, got it.
And May 19th.
I got Claudia.
Item 15,
Yeah.
recommendation for adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, we don't want to leave yet.
Let's go back.
Let's go back.
I move we.
I
There's a
second
motion,
that.
there's a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.